The Weekly Harvest, an in-depth look at the Brandon Wheat Kings and the WHL.
Washman trying to come up with it for Allison. Here's Allison right in front. He scores!
Brandon Junior hockey fans, you've waited 2 decades for this. In the league's 50th anniversary, your Wheat Kings are the champions.
And we are live. Welcome back to another edition of the Weekly Harvest podcast. Right off the bat, I want to say hopefully this is sounding a whole lot better. Shout out to Windows for updating 10 minutes before last week's podcast that caused all kinds of board issues. Luckily, we were able to get it somewhat up and running, but hopefully this one sounds a whole lot better. Again, welcome to the Weekly Harvest podcast. My name is Chris Falko, Director of Game Day Operations with the Brandon Wheat Kings.
I'm Brandon Crowe, the radio voice on Q Country Radio, and that is where those of you watching online tonight are tuning in. A couple of you are already chimed in, and for those of you that are tuning in on the traditional podcast format, again, thank you for joining us. Episode 20 of the Weekly Harvest. A special guest joining us from down in Morden. He's 25th all-time in the franchise games played list with 254. He had 234 total points in his career, and a lot of people remember him for one goal and one goal only, the biggest goal of his career, and we'll get to that a little bit later. Jay Fehr joins us on episode 20, and we were just talking off air. Jay, you've been keeping busy and you know still working through all of this. Just tell the Wheat King fans what you've been up to lately.
Yeah, just working. We do work on grain elevators a lot, so yeah, I guess they got to keep running and whatnot, so it's essential service. Yeah, me and my wife just had a baby boy 7 months ago, so he keeps us busy during this time.
Congratulations. How's that been so far, the first 7 months?
Good. He sleeps all night. Sleeps for about 12 hours straight, so it's been easy.
Oh, this is 2020, so 15, so 2035 will be his WHL Bantam draft year. Has you got that circled already on the calendar?
Yeah, he can't even sit up by himself yet.
Well, we'll look back on this someday, and hopefully, I mean, if all goes well, I won't still be the voice of the Brandon Wheat Kings by then, but maybe if I am, we can reflect back on this. Jay, obviously, your career was one of, relative consistency, and I want to go back. We like to ask these guys, when we bring you on, what did you know about the Brandon Wheat Kings? I know you're relatively local, being kind of from the area a little bit, but that transition from midget to the Brandon Wheat Kings, what did you know when you finally put pen to paper and came into the organization?
Not a whole bunch. You grow up going to tournaments in Brandon, and then obviously going to the games and watching the Wheat Kings growing up. But yeah, it's definitely a real big change, especially moving away from home and moving away from your home school and going to school in Brandon. And it's a bit of a shock the first year. It's busy.
Who are some of the guys that kind of helped bring you into the organization in that first year? Like, who are some of the players that you first remember?
Living with Jeff Pilko at our billets the first year, definitely hung around him lots. Mark Derlago, Tyler Dittmer, guys like that. And then we had our young crew of school guys, Cale Jeffries and Nathan Green. So yeah, we had a pretty solid team to come into, and a lot of good older guys to teach us the ropes.
Well, in your 4 years, you guys played a lot of playoff hockey. You played 11 games the first year, only 6 the second year, but then 24 playoff games in your last 2 years. I mean, it's obviously, Brandon's always had such a playoff mentality, and it just seems like, realistically, the team's only missed the playoffs 3 times since I've been alive. Was that always the mindset? Like, I know when Kelly McCrimmon was in charge, both as coach and GM, he had a certain way of doing it. Was it kind of first day of training camp, he came in and set the bar right off the hop with all you guys?
Yeah, I think expectations were always high, especially with Kelly. I think he got the best out of our teams, and yeah, like there was no real goofing around or nothing. It was it was business.
Is he a little intimidating as a young kid? Like, at what point were you comfortable knocking on his door? When you were 20 and you were leaving? Is that kind of the point you felt comfortable?
No, never comfortable going into that office. Besides seeing Chewy's goofy face, that's about it.
So, love the photo that's on your awesome black and gold wall, by the way. Very Vikingish. Yeah. But that uniform in particular, let's just talk about the Memorial Cup year. A very special year, I got to think of as a player going into it, knowing that not only is your spot already booked, but because of that, the support in the community and the fan attendance throughout the year, I mean, on paper, it's the most well-attended Wheat King season that there's ever been. What was it like to go into that year knowing what you guys had in store?
Yeah, for sure. It was exciting. It was nerve-wracking, too, because we had real good 20-year-olds, Matt Calvert, Lodnick, and Dell Cowan. So we knew that one of us was going, and unfortunately Dell was the one. But yeah, it was such an exciting year all the way through.
You get to that game. Now, I was still in college in Brandon, and I remember I was sitting in section 21, 22, kind of on the bowl on the end when you guys were playing in the semifinal. Going into that game, obviously the pressure was through the roof. Do you remember what it was like coming into the rink and preparing for that game? Was it different than any other game because of what was on the line, or how did you guys approach your preparation for that night?
Yeah, I think there was a little bit of anxiousness. Man, that's a long time ago to remember details like that. Yeah, I don't know. I think the excitement though of it all makes everybody ready to play. It doesn't matter who you are.
Was Tony Rayala a real underrated player in the Western Hockey League? Because I've said that from day one. And had he not had to go back to Finland for whatever military duty was required of him and whatever the case may be, I know he was a little small, but did he have a legitimate shot? Because I think he was underrated.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I don't know. He was with Edmonton, I believe?
I think they drafted him, but if I'm not mistaken, he had to go home for some sort of government-related reason, I think the following year, wasn't it?
Yeah, he talked about something to do with the military or something he had to go back for. But yeah, definitely, he was underrated.
Great hair, too.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, he rocked a mullet.
Okay, so now let's get into the goal, Jay. So it's the big game. You're facing Calgary. Huge rivals at the time leading up to this. Home team, I mean, even me being in Manitoba, and I was working out in Alberta at a radio station with a couple of Manitobans. We had a watch party. We were just north of Calgary, so a bunch of Hitman fans versus the Wheat King fans. So it was almost like we were there, but of course not, just because of that noise and the atmosphere. But what do you remember from that goal? And I got to think that's the most memorable goal of your career. Or is it?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
So what exactly do you remember of it?
I scored some big ones against Altona in the SMHL a couple years ago. No, I don't remember much about it. I've watched the video a couple times online the last couple days. I can't remember if I gave it up to Rayala or if Lodnick did. But yeah, just went up the ice and Tony dropped it and I put it on net. I think it went top shelf.
It was so strange to me at the time because of where I was sitting. I had that view of all of you guys going up the ice. And when Tony dropped it to you, every defender just followed him as he crossed the ice. Like it was like everybody just got out of your way to shoot. And do you remember, did you pick your spot or did you just close your eyes and let it rip?
No, I just let it rip. I think it might have went 5-hole. It was right along the ice.
And I think when everybody crossed in front of, was Martin Jones the goalie at the time? I think it fooled him when everybody crossed in front of him. And it really obviously sent the Keystone into an absolute frenzy. And there's so many people that have commented over the last week, because of course the anniversary of the goal was last week, saying that that's the loudest they've ever heard the Keystone. When the puck went in, do you remember any of the celebration, or was it all just such a blur?
No, it was a blur. I got mauled there. Herbaum, I think, took me into the boards.
it set up a final that was obviously a little anticlimactic with the loss at the hands of Windsor, but
Yeah.
did that game against Calgary maybe just take a little bit too much out of everybody because of what was on the line? And once you won that game, there wasn't much left in the tank. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, I don't know. It was a pretty big emotional win for us, that's for sure. And then going in, Windsor, that was a heck of a team though. Yeah, I don't know what it was about them, but yeah, they spanked us twice there.
They had some good players. I think Taylor Hall.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that he survived Travis Hamonic trying to kill him in the first game to come back and be as good as he was. Because, I mean, everybody thought that was the end of Taylor Hall's career.
Yeah, I'm not sure how he came back from that.
Okay, Jay. So then, after you move on from the Wheat Kings, what happens after that with your hockey career?
I went to Minnesota's rookie camp in Traverse City, into that tournament, and then I had a cup of coffee in Houston. Went to camp in Houston, and then it was busy. I took a lot of flights in about a couple months there, and then I went to Acadia with actually there was a few Wheat Kings on Acadia, Andrew Clark, Nathan Green. So I went there for a couple months and found out I didn't really enjoy school that much. And then I flew over to Dresden, Germany, and played out the rest of the year.
Was playing in Europe, something you really embraced? Obviously, you were only there for a short period of time, but I mean, was it everything you thought it would be? And, what did you remember specifically about your short time in Germany?
Yeah, it was definitely different living there. The thing that stands out to me the most is a couple of the rinks, they're open on the one side, so it's like outdoors, and so you can kind of feel the wind coming in going one way. But no, it was an awesome experience.
And we were kind of touching on it a little bit before. Was it your decision to not return back overseas? Like, did you have an opportunity and just decided, it's time to move home? Or how did your kind of pro hockey career come to an end?
Yeah, I never, after I flew home that year, I never really pursued going back. So I was done at that point. I think I was committed to just moving back home.
And obviously that was an easy transition for you because obviously a whole bunch of your buddies and everything, you jumped right back into the senior hockey thing, and you've been playing for a number of years. Was it nice to get into the senior hockey where there is all of a sudden no pressure? You can just go out there and have a little fun and have a few beers afterwards. Was that a big change for you? Because I know some guys, even guys here in Virden where I live, they had a hard time going from junior to senior because maybe the competition wasn't there, the competitive level wasn't there. Was it an easy transition for you?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, I guess. I didn't play last year, but yeah, it was actually, our league was really strong at that point, and we had a pretty good rivalry with Altona, and Devon LeBlanc was on Altona, so they had a real good squad. So it was there was a lot of battles, and there's actually a lot of hatred between Morden and Altona in that league.
I think that's the case most of these senior leagues. I think maybe one or both of LeBlanc brothers play in Virden now. I think is it both? I'm not even sure. I'd have to check the whole roster here, but I know one of them does. And every time Virden plays Elkhorn, somebody usually leaves in an ambulance because somebody's beating the snot out of the other guy. And it's usually the Bulls. There's 3 or 4 Bulls brothers playing on Elkhorn, and it usually turns into a big brawl. Some guys just can't quit. Some guys just can't lay off and just have some fun.
Yeah, that's what makes it fun too.
So what's up now for the summer? Oh, sorry, Crowe, I kind of cut out there. What was that?
Speed questions. What's that, Chris?
No, sorry, they kind of glitched out there. You keep going?
Oh, well, my dog was barking out in the hallway too. I wonder there might be a raccoon running across the yard or something. But we gotta ask you a few rapid fire questions.
Oh boy.
We try and do this with everybody. So we'll start with this one. I like this one the best. Favorite rink to play in aside from Brandon in the Western League, and your least favorite rink to play in the Western League?
Favorite rink was Calgary. Least favorite was the old rink at in Medicine Hat.
Really? Why would that be? A lot of people said they liked the old one compared to the new one.
Well, maybe it was the guys that were playing in Medicine Hat at that time.
Yeah, that could be it. You guys had some battles back in the day.
All right, here's mine. Toughest teammate you've ever played with and the toughest opponent you've ever played against.
Toughest guy I've ever played with, probably Mark Lewis. And sorry, what was the second one?
Who's the toughest player you've ever played against?
Oh.
Like, is there one guy that you're just like, oh, man, this is going to be tough. I don't like this. I hate this.
I don't know. Lucic, my first year, was pretty intimidating.
I would guess so.
Yeah.
There you go.
Luckily, you only played him once.
Yeah, exactly.
He wasn't on Regina.
And Mark Lewis fought him that game. So.
Yeah, if he was in Regina and pounding into the Keystone concrete wall every night, that might have been a different factor. Do you remember, obviously you guys had a lot of great, times on the road and different things like that. What do you remember from life on the bus? Because I know that, the hours that I spend on the bus, our bus is probably a little more luxurious than what you guys had back then, as obviously technology advances in, DVDs and iPads and things like that. What do you remember about killing time on those long bus trips?
Luber snoring. Playing cards with the boys.
Crowe has filled that spot beautifully, is from what I heard as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of little transition issues when everything happened, but that was not one of them. So that's good.
Yeah, actually, Scooter is the one that snores now.
Oh, yeah?
Out of anybody. Scooter is like a giant grizzly bear. He makes a little den out of blankets in a sleeping bag. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Do they still have the folding bunks on the bus?
They took them off, but there are still 2 at the back, and I want to say that's it. So a couple of 20-year-olds get to fight over the bunks, but everything else is seats. But they've changed it now, so instead of, say, a regular 55-passenger bus, it's like a 30-passenger bus. So everybody's got more room, and each seat has like a footrest, and it actually reclines a lot farther than like the half-inch that they used to recline.
Oh, yeah.
But the DVD player rarely works. The speakers are very average. And the old CD, the post-game win song, all that stuff, it's not the best audio when you fire that up on the bus. But I have to admit, the running joke is that win song CD goes back to when you guys started that way back in the mid-2000s. That CD's got nothing left of it anymore.
I had to make a digital copy. I had to make a digital copy just in case that CD player finally crapped out while they're on the road. And I was making the list. I was like, you want me to update this a little bit? They're like, no, you can't update it. I'm like, all right, I don't think that list has changed yet in a long time.
There's some bad songs on that. Like, did you do the whole roll into the city and then you fire up the tunes to wake the guys up as you're getting to the rink? That CD is exactly the same, Jay. I'm not kidding you. Same songs. It
a lot of
hasn't
Tragic
changed.
Step on there.
Yeah. I think Falco might have slipped in a couple of new ones when you did the digital version. I think you might have slipped in a couple of songs. And I remember
for that
Dave
one.
Anning,
For that one, because they requested it. They're like, because that's not really tradition after like a win, but that the whole win playlist, that one can never change apparently. So
yeah, I remember you slipped in a couple of songs, and I was the music guy because of where I sat, and I pushed play, and a new song played, and David Anning, who was the coach at the time, just looked at me and said, "What is this? You can't change this."
Hockey players and superstitions, Jay. Who is one of the players that you've played with? No, not just the Wheat Kings, maybe in any of your travels. Who's one guy that came across you like just some weird superstitious something that player did?
Oh.
Or maybe is it you? Was there something that you always had to do on a game day or before a game?
I would lay on the couch at my billets, and Aaron Lodnick would play video games all afternoon, and I'd watch him play video games.
You were ahead of your time.
He lived outside of town, so he would just come to my billets for the afternoon on game days, and he would just play video games, because if you ever met that guy, he was just wired all the time. So he would.
What was the game of choice back then? Was it NHL, or were you playing Madden, or what was the game of choice?
It was Call of Duty.
Still.
Yeah.
Boys are still playing Call of Duty and Fortnite, and I think it's hasn't changed all that much, I don't think. There's still a lot of guys that are heavy gamers. Is that how you guys killed a lot of your off time back in the mid 2000s? Or, I mean, you weren't really binging Netflix or anything like the guys are now. What were you guys doing on your off days?
Yeah, a lot of video games. There's a lot of time to kill in a day.
Especially when you're not in school.
Yeah, that's a change. When you're going to school, it's busy. But and then we had workouts on, when I was there anyways, workouts on Mondays and Wednesdays, something like that anyways. But no, lots of video games. And
were you around during the free movie pass days?
Yes, that was awesome.
The guys lived at the movie theater, I guess, for a number of years. Just while that deal was in place, a lot of off days apparently spent there.
Yeah, you see the new movies twice or 3 times.
I know the guys now, for the most part, their go-to day off or even practice day food stop is Qdoba in Brandon. And of course, that's owned by, another former Western Leaguer in Laird Lidster, who also owns the Dairy Queen. So he's kind of got the monopoly on the hockey player diet with the Mexican food and the ice cream. But where was your guys' go-to, like after practice, if you were going to grab a bite to eat? What was your go-to place?
What's that little, it turned into a Boston Pizza.
Right by the rink on Richmond?
No, it's behind the 7-Eleven, across from the Vic Inn.
Oh, it was, it's the chili chutney now. But what was it? Oh, I can't remember. Because it's gone through a few things. It's now it's an Indian food place now.
It was a pizza joint anyways. That's where we went after pretty much every game. I should be able to think of it, but I can't.
I can picture the sign, but I just can't come up with it. You obviously had a ton of great support from coaches and everything, and obviously led by Kelly McCrimmon. What did he do for you? Or if you were to try and talk some young Mordenite who's drafted by the Wheat Kings, and the relationship you had with Kelly, what sort of things would you what kind of stories would you be telling?
Yeah, he was an awesome coach, and he would tell you straight up if you weren't doing what he wanted. That's for sure. I remember my first exhibition game. I think it was in Regina, and from AAA, I would just go back and get the puck behind the net and go up the ice and do whatever with it. And so I did that the first game, and he's like, never do that again. No, Kelly is awesome. He always treated me good. He was always great to me.
He's definitely not a guy who's gonna beat around the bush. He's gonna get right to the point.
Yeah, for sure.
Have you stayed in touch with Kelly at all? I know there's been some time since you played, but between him and some of your teammates, who are guys that you still stay in relative contact with or play around a golf with?
Right now I hang out with Andrew Clark lots because he lives in Morden.
What's he doing now?
He just got back from. He played in Switzerland last year.
So is he planning on going back to Europe if all this is done, or is he?
I'm not sure. He hasn't said too much if he's still playing or what he's doing. But
all right, Jay. So you're in Morden. I got to give a shout out to my buddy's restaurant. You ever been to George's Kitchen in Morden?
Yeah, for sure. Awesome food. Chicken burger.
Oh, the chicken burger, pizzas, ice cream. If you're ever around Morden, Crowe, you got to stop by George's Kitchen.
You know what? I can't remember the last time. Maybe when I worked for the Verdun Oil Capitals and we played against Winkler, might have been the last. I mean, even though I grew up in Boissevain, which isn't all that far from Morden, down the highway past Killarney, I have had no family in the area. I've never really had any reason to go to Morden. But if all this shakes out, I'm going to be looking for places to go this summer. And I mean, ultimately, I'm assuming most of the festivals, including the Corn and Apple, will probably be postponed or canceled. But certainly have to put that on the list moving forward. Jay, you touched on, you've got a young kid now, and he's, 7 months old now.
Yep.
At what point, are you hoping he plays hockey? Are you hoping he wants to be an athlete? Does it matter at this point, or what are your thoughts on him playing hockey in the future?
Yeah, I hope he does. I still enjoy going down to the rink and shooting the shit with everybody, and so hopefully he wants to play. I won't force him to play, but
Will you be coach dad?
I don't know.
You don't know if you can handle that?
A couple of years ago, and it's a lot of work coaching.
Well, I think it's also probably tough if you have a kid on the team too. I know my dad coached growing up. Luckily, I was a goalie, so I didn't have much to deal with my own father, but I couldn't imagine if I had to play out, like forward or defense, with my dad as a coach. I think I would have hated it. Some kids love it, but sometimes, having your dad on the bench and not in the crowd might be too much, especially when your dad had the junior career you did. Every other parent that's like a beer league guy will be looking at you for all the answers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's up now for you for the summer, Jay? Like you said, like you were still having to work, so no real big plans, just kind of hanging around home then?
Yeah, me and my wife enjoy camping. We're actually, speaking of Boys of Ain, we're going to Adam Lake.
Oh, yeah.
In a few weeks on July long. So
you like fishing too then?
Yeah, there you go. That's what
I want to talk fishing for a minute, Crowe, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
you guys have at it.
I've probably fished.
Crappie in Minnewaska.
What was that?
Lake Minnewaska and Morden. Best crappie fishing.
Really? Eh? See, I've never been there.
Yeah.
Whereabouts? Like outside Morden?
Yeah, it's just west of town. Basically right in town.
And just like not very big?
No, you can get a boat in there, but it's a pretty small lake.
Well, Falco just bought himself a fancy new kayak, and it's got a trolling. Did you get the trolling motor for it yet?
I literally was installing that right before we were doing this. I finished making the bracket, so now it goes in and out of the rod holders sweetly. Yeah, I'm super stoked. So we're gonna get that out here because Jay, the other day, so I got two boys. I have a 5 and an 11-year-old. Well, we went out fishing on the kayaks. The 5-year-old can't really paddle, so I have the tow rope. Well, now I'm paddling for 2 kayaks on a choppy lake with a bit of whitecaps. I had zero fun. I did 100% of the work, and I was beat up for 2 days after. I'm like, this is not going to happen again. So I went and bought a trolling motor, and so now when I go out, we can definitely do both. But no, I probably fished 90% of the days that the season's been open already. With all this going on, just like a relaxing thing, if anything, just getting out to the river or the lake. But always looking for a new lake. I've already fished probably 6-7 different lakes this year, so I'll head on down there, go see Dennis, go to George's, get myself some lunch, and then go hit up that lake there.
Well, Jay, we're going to have to wind this up. We've taken enough of your time, and I'm sure that you got plenty on the agenda on such a nice day. But certainly this was something we had to do. I know last week there was so much attention on the Jay Fehr goal and what it all meant to the organization. And I was talking to Bruce Lubke, and I sent a tweet out from the team account, basically transcribing his play-by-play call, which to me, being the radio guy now and growing up listening to Luber, was still one of my favorite calls ever. And I don't know if you at any point had happened to tune into a Viking game over the last couple of years, but actually that goal call from Luber is part of our intro to the broadcast every night still. So Jay Fehr still gets radio airtime like 10 years later. But he said his response to the tweet was that was his favorite all-time goal to call. Despite all the WHL championships and other big moments, it was, in his mind, the biggest moment in Viking history because of the stage and because it happened on home ice. And that's a guy that was, part of the organization from, 1990, early 90s to 2016. So for him to say that was the biggest moment in Brandon Viking history because of all of that, does that register at all with you? Or do you, you spend a lot of time with Luber. Do you think he's crazy?
I don't know. There's tough to say. It wasn't the championship game, I guess, but it was a pretty cool moment for sure. And Bruce has seen a lot of games in his day.
Well, that'll be a cool video to show your kid when he's old enough to comprehend what's going on, because there's a lot of people, and I get a lot of Viking fans on the road. They always want to stop and chat, and it's usually one of the first couple things that they say is, where were you when that goal was scored? What do you remember? And I say I don't remember a whole lot. I was in college. That goal went in. We all went straight to the bar, and yeah, I don't remember much after that. Everyone was just so happy that you guys won. So, Jay, this was awesome. Appreciate it. Best of luck to you and your wife in raising another young Wheat King prospect, hopefully in a handful of years.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks a lot, Jay. Appreciate it.
So here's the awkward part, Chris. This is where you try and boot Jay out, right?
There you go.
There he is. Gone.
I like Jay. Jay's a good guy. Just a good old country boy. Love it.
There's a lot of people that come and go in the hockey world, and I see a lot of them, and I'm still young in my career, but it's always the small town guys that everybody loves. We've talked about Connor Gutenberg and how he is the most listened to, most viewed podcast we've had. And that's about Bob McKenzie, Kelly McCrimmon, Ray Ferraro, Darren Dreger, all these guys. People love these guys, and Jay was another one of those guys. I know it was before your time, before my time, but I think Luber's right. It's arguably one of the biggest moments in franchise history.
Listen, I grew up in Russell. We got to come in a couple of times when we were kids, watch Wheat King games growing up. Never the huge playoff ones. It was just kind of random games we'd get in and get to kind of see. One of the first real big memories of the run would have been really in 2010. I mean, we were out like we talked about out in Alberta. And it was like that connection to the Manitoba roots that kind of brought us together to kind of celebrate Brandon having it and then having those watch parties. And it's one of those things where, there's not a whole lot of Wheat King goals I can think about and know exactly where I was. I remember exactly where I was in my living room, who was in the living room with me. I remember, so much about the whole event. And we did it for multiple games that tournament, but that was, of course, the one, right? It was versus Calgary. It was so much on the line, but it was that rivalry at the time. It wasn't like it was just a berth in the final. There was a lot of resentment between those two teams built up, and it's very hard to disagree that that's the biggest goal in Wheat King history.
And I think about it from my perspective, I was in college trying to get a radio degree because I knew that I wanted to be Bruce Lupke at some point and take his job whenever he retired and be the voice of the Brandon Wheat Kings growing up, being a fan. And I remember sitting in that section. It was at the top of, I can't remember, 21-22. The goal went in. Everybody went nuts. And I remember the next morning, Luber posted the goal call audio on his blog. And I probably, in the history, since that goal, I've probably listened to that thing 1,000 times. And like I said, I made it a part of our broadcast intro. Luber did such an amazing job of just capturing the moment and letting the fans just kind of speak for the moment, right? And I mean, Perry Bergson as well. I want to tip our cap to him and the work he's doing this week in the Brandon Sun and the last handful of days as well in his I think it's a 16-part series or something ridiculous, chronicling the championship season. That's some great moments as well. But without a doubt, Jay Fehr, great small town farm kid doing great things in Morden. So thanks for that. I got a couple of news and notes, Falco, I want to get to.
Go for it.
As we stretch this out a little bit. Tip of the cap to the Western Hockey League as well. They've been doing this WHL Beyond Hockey feature where they basically chronicle officials, broadcasters, former players in the medical field, whether it be firefighter, paramedic, police, doctor, nurse, any guy that's graduated, gone on, or has a career outside of hockey. And this week they chronicled Stefan Lenoski, who's a doctor in Winnipeg at Legacy Sport Medicine. And if you head to the WHL website, you can read all about his time in Brandon and what he's doing now. It's a great read. It's a long read, but certainly, when you look at the long list of alumni that didn't make it to the NHL, guys that have had an impact on the real world, Lenoski is certainly one of those guys, a big part of the medical sports science industry in Winnipeg, and it's a great read. I also want to say, from my perspective, I wanted to ask you, Chris, did you see the Calgary Flames TikTok from today? Did you see that?
Not only did I see it, I made sure I was actually walking out of our office, making sure some other people saw it as well, because I thought that was really special and really well done. Again, not to harp on the whole hometown, but growing up in Russell, Theron Fleury was from Russell. He's the hometown hero growing up. I was 5 years old when they won the Stanley Cup in '89. That's one of my very first hockey memories is watching them with the Stanley Cup in the living room with my dad saying, "This is special. He's from here. He's from here." I remember him saying that. And that always kind of stuck with me. So yeah, no, that team always has a special place in my heart, and that video was so well done. And to not just include the little video of Brad, but right before for Ramage to put up the 4 and pay tribute to him as well, I thought that was really, really well done. Kudos on that.
So for those of you that haven't seen it, if you go to the Calgary Flames alumni page at Alumni Flames, you can also find it on at Hockey Night in Canada's Twitter page. It starts with Laddie McDonald. Now, some people may not know this, but when you win the Stanley Cup, every player gets a replica Stanley Cup, but it's miniature. It's probably the size of like a root beer mug from A&W, maybe a little bit bigger. Every player gets one of those along with their Stanley Cup ring. And the Flames, because of social distancing, they couldn't have an alumni party to celebrate that on this day in 1989, May 25th, 1989, the Flames won their first and only Stanley Cup in franchise history. So it basically was done social distancing-wise via cell phone, guys passing their miniature trophy from one guy to the next. And like you said, they included, of course, the late Brad McCrimmon in there as well. And then at the very end, they had another – as I accidentally turned the volume on. They had another couple of guys as well that have since passed on. So for a guy like me and you who are always looking for new content, it may have been simple, but I certainly liked it, and it was pretty touching. What else we got? A couple of other just little news and notes. We've got a couple of guests lined up here for the next couple of weeks.
Now, before I actually get into that, because I like our guest list, and I think this is worth us teasing just for another 1 minute. The people are going to listen for this. We got some cool guests. But quickly, in answer to our question earlier, what was chili chutney before it was chili chutney? It was Miracles and then Parthenon pizza. For sure, that's what Jay was thinking of. Parthenon pizza. There we go. So thanks to Aaron for that one. Okay, our guests upcoming. Crow, go ahead.
Well, this week, coming up on Monday, for those of you Wheat King fans that were at the Sportsman's Dinner, he was the comedian of the night. He is a hockey-loving Canadian comedian. Kelly Taylor is going to join us. He's one of the funniest comedians in Canada. He just started his own podcast, Tick with a Side of Tet, on Spotify. It's absolutely hilarious. His Twitter page, at Tick Taylor, is an unbelievable follow, especially now during COVID. Him and his wife have both been kind of stopped from working. Obviously, comedians, you can't have a bar full of people and whatever else. He's hilarious. And the best part is he was an emergency backup goalie for the Brandon Wheat Kings in the 90s with like Darren Ritchie and Marty Murray and those guys. And he tells the funniest stories. He
still has a Wheat King tie. So this is fantastic. And he is such a good comedian. He's been at the Sportsman's Dinner now for actually a few times, every couple years now, try and bring him back because he's just so well loved. And if you talk to anybody who was there this past year, it was one of the funniest sets he's ever done. So not to put pressure on it, but just looking forward to having him on. It's going to be a real good time next week. And the week after that, for fans of those mid-90s teams, there's one iconic duo that sort of comes to mind in terms of goal scoring in the mid-90s. We have one of them confirmed, and the other one, I was twisting his arm today. I'm pretty sure we're going to get him now that we have the other one. But, Crow, do you want to reveal the news? Because you're the one who did the work on this, so kudos. But I'm super excited for this.
Well, he's another guy like Jay Fehr, who was kind of in the news in the last couple of weeks. And not for an anniversary of a big moment, but for kind of a promotion of sorts. Marty Murray has recently accepted a new position in the USHL with the Sioux Falls Stampede, moving up from the North American League where he was coaching in Minot. And he is confirmed for, what is that, the week of the 8th?
June 8th. Monday, June 8th. We got Marty Murray confirmed. And then trying to also confirm, I'm sure he's going to join him, his scoring teammate at the time, the iconic duo, Darren Ritchie. Of course, GM of the Brandon Wheat Kings. But Rich and Murray, those two are going to... I know they have stories, I mean, obviously, but it'd be really good if we can get them to get on here together. So hopefully that does come to fruition, but for sure, Marty Murray on June 8th. So a couple weeks here, all set, good to go.
Yeah, and it's another one of those where, we talked about getting Rich on to talk more about his playing days. I know we've grilled him about all the professional GMing stuff and all the the everyday monotony of being a GM. But there's nothing better than when, Darren Ritchie opens up and tells some great stories about his time as a player and, the different environments, the rinks, the brawls, the warm-ups, the equipment, everything, the Wild West that was the early 90s in the Western Hockey League. And to have him and, if you can convince him, and I mean, if we're talking about it now, we'll get a couple other people twisting his arm. But between him and Marty Murray, that's coming up on the 8th of June. But yeah, next week, Kelly Taylor, check out his new podcast. It's on Spotify. Tick with a side of Tet. So TIC with a side of TET. I don't know what that means. We'll have to ask him about it. But I admit, I've the last couple Sportsman's Dinners, the comedians, Steve Patterson from the Debaters 2 years ago, and Kelly Taylor this year, I was crying. I was laughing so hard at Kelly Taylor this year. So he's excited to come on. He's a Prince Albert guy. He loves Braden Schneider. Absolutely loves Braden Schneider. I
know it's not our guest next week, Kelly Taylor. He's mentioned Steve Patterson from 2 years ago. I still have this book beside me. I got a copy when he was here. He's another guy. Maybe we should actually email because he was really good when he was here too. I like him.
And everybody, some people might say, "Oh, what are you doing? You're getting comedians. It's a hockey podcast. What's going on?" Well, if you look, and I can't really explain it, but if you look at the official podcast picture for Kelly Taylor, it is a hockey picture. Him in his prime. I can't really describe it on podcast form. Basically, it's from down the hallway behind him. He's a goalie bent over, and he's not wearing pants. So it's actually hilarious. But really looking forward to that. We know it's the summertime. It's going to be hard to talk hockey all summer long. So we're going to mix it up, add a few different angles, and just try and keep this fun, light Wheat King Weekly Harvest podcast going. I know we didn't go as long with Jay this week as we have with other guests in the past who, maybe in the media love to tell more stories. But Jay, you could just tell that that his time in Brandon was special to him, and hopefully he enjoyed his time, and fans liked listening to what he had to say.
Sure hope so. If you have any questions or comments you want to pass along to us, the email inbox is always open. It's qweeklyharvest@gmail.com. That's the letter Q, weeklyharvest@gmail.com. Of course, you can listen to this podcast at qcountryfm.ca, the radio station website, or download it wherever you listen to your traditional podcast beginning Tuesday at noon. Live streaming Monday nights at 8 o'clock, which we will continue. So one more time, next Monday night, 8 o'clock, we're back here live with Kelly Taylor. The following Monday, Marty Murray and Darren Ritchie. We're going to twist his arm, and we're going to get them on. And however you're listening, whenever you're listening, even if it's over a couple minutes, we definitely appreciate it. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and let us know. I mean, you're on Twitter, Falco, personally. I'm on Twitter as well. You're at @_Falco, Falko. I'm at Brandon_Crowe. Also, we both monitor the team social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. If you don't have any of those, send us a message. Let us know. What do you like? What do you don't like? What do you want to see? Who do you want to hear from? We're always looking for ideas and different stories we can tackle. And maybe we can bring Perry back on here, although I don't know if he knows how to use his webcam on his computer. But I'd love to talk to him a little bit about his recent Brandon Sun chronicling of the championship season as well. But send us a message anywhere. We're always keeping an eye on it, so let us know.
And good job mentioning that. And also, I know you've already given him kudos, but I got to do the same to Perry. He has done an incredible job. I mean, he always does. Like we've talked about this over the years. He's an incredible reporter for the Wheat Kings, what he does for the coverage in the Brandon Sun. But the amount of time and effort and work he's put into this recent championship storytelling saga, it is unbelievable. If you have not checked it all out, go online, brandonsun.com. Help support the paper too. Go and get your subscription. Go check it out. But he's done a fantastic job covering it, and it's been great even for me just to kind of relive it and telling stories that I either forgot or didn't know myself. Even being here that year, so it's been really cool to kind of relive that. Thanks to Perry.
Yeah, and if anybody out there if any of the barber shops out there want to sponsor the podcast, I mean, look at this. It's the all-hair team here. I got quite the mullet going on back here, too.
On the plus side, we could start an emo band because I feel like if we just come up with some name like...
I got too much product in here. I can't pull it down.
The Rinks...
I got my wife's mousse in my hair. It's rock solid.
My life is like the rink. It's gone dark.
All right, that's enough for this Monday. We'll talk to you guys next week. Again, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and let us know, qweeklyharvest@gmail.com.
And thank you for Microsoft for only taking a week for me to figure out how to fix our sound issues here. So I'm glad that we got that figured out in time. But no, thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll talk to you again next week. Take care. Cheers.